Through his childhood, Eric Martinez experienced an abusive father, an alcoholic and drug-addicted mother, and then the death of his mother. His life at home was not a loving, safe environment. He did not experience a loving home until high school, when he moved in with his aunt's family. Joseph Rodriguez lived through poverty. He and his family were evicted from their home and moved from hotel to finally a small house. It wasn't uncommon for a utility or phone bill to go unpaid, so the house would lose power. Joseph Rodriguez experienced racial, social separation with his classmates and clear racism from his educators. His father was also jailed. Sarah Fox had two sisters. Her elder sister was a popular girl in high school. She partied and drank and did drugs. Sarah viewed her sister as perfect and wanted to be just like her. In a way, she was. Once she started drinking, she drank heavily and often. She went so far to lose important relationships because of it. Wanting to change, she entered Alcoholics Anonymous and stayed sober years after. Despite the struggles these three individuals went through, they stayed resilient. They persevered and overcame the circumstances that they could have let hold them back. They were able to stay strong, be successful, and be proud of who they were.
These groups of students struggled with fulfilling their parents' wishes and wanting to live out their own dreams. They felt the need to give back to their parents for sacrificing so much for them, but needing to surpass who they really were to get to where they needed to be. Also having to be raised as a part of two cultures, a different one at school and another one at home, made Latino students feel as if they weren't completely a part of a particular world. Growing up as a Mexican American, they live their entire lives as Americans, but have to face racism because their parents can't speak English or simply because they look like immigrants. Despite all this adversity, they were able to prove to the world that being bicultural doesn't mean you don't completely belong to one. It means that you can move between the two and still find where you fit in.
Transitioning into college is a difficult process, but when you add in familial challenges such as abuse, drug addictions, alcoholism, poverty, and incarceration, the transition becomes even more difficult. In addition to this, many Latino students must overcome stereotypical and racist perspectives that restrict their educational opportunities and harm their self-esteem. To help students transition and move beyond such issues, many people turn toward a concept called mentoring. Mentors, in short, are individuals that prove to be difference makers in the life of another person. For many, a parent, professor, friend, or other family member may be a mentor. Regardless of the relationship between the mentor and student, a mentor provides the support and encouragement a student needs to work hard, dream, and pursue his or her goals. In Mi Voz Mi Vida, many of the students cited their mothers as a mentor in their lives. As they matured and advanced in their education, they realized how many sacrifices their mothers made to give them a better life. For example, Angelita Urina's mother made the difficult decision to temporarily leave her daughter in the Dominican Republic with her grandmother while she worked tirelessly in the United States to save up enough money to bring Angelita to the U.S. Once reunited, Angelita's mother continued to work 2 full-time jobs to fund her daughter's schooling, and despite her busy schedule, Angelita's mother was always at her side to encourage and support her dedication to school and life. These sacrifices became the inspiration and drive Angelita needed to succeed in graduating from Dartmouth, becoming a teacher, and attending law school at Cornell University.
The first 2 essays, in Latino Identities, Becoming and Unbecoming Latina, focus on Alejo Alvarez and Antonio Rodriguez. Alejo Alvarez felt disconnected to his culture because he was Puerto Rican but could not speak Spanish. He grew up in a predominantly white upper-middle-class world, and he felt invisible with his culture. When he got to high school and people automatically split up with groups of people from the same background, he asked himself, who am I? Where do I belong? He spent the summer working as a lifeguard at a majority Latino beach, and he started to think of himself as a Latino. He still felt lost to who he was after that. However, he embraced the possibilities of what he could be. Antonio Rodriguez felt like a definition. He was a first-generation, pale-skinned, upper-middle-class white Latino male with two educated parents who immigrated in hopes that he would fulfill their dreams. Growing up, he felt like his ethnicity and identity were predefined. Being segregated in school as a child made him question where he belonged. Through college, he found a love and decided he would not be told how to act Latino, and that he did not need to conform to society's stereotypes, and that he could just be himself.
Being Canela by Norma Undrone starts off with Norma talking about how her brother Michael went off to college and came back 6 months into his freshman year and he changed. Michael now wanted to go by Miguel. In addition, he also spoke in Spanish and the Incan language Quechua. This was very odd to Norma because the two of them spoke exclusively in English. She speaks of how college had allowed them to embrace the indigenous richness of their family, which they never really celebrated. Norma states what makes immigrant parents different from their children is that the leadership roles are reversed. We children became teachers to our parents, Norma goes on to say. She says that kids of immigrant parents would read and translate the mail because parents didn't understand English. They would also write letters for them and teach them all about American culture. She goes on to say how identifying as Latina has given her the ability to take pride in being a woman of color. Lastly, her and her family selectively assimilate to retain their rich culture. Living Between the Lines by Alessandro Melendez is about a Puerto Rican boy who moved to America because of his father. Him and his siblings quickly got used to how American education worked and rose up to the top of their classes. In 8th grade, Alessandro applied for a prestigious prep school and got in. His first day of class, he doubted himself, telling himself that his peers were smarter than him. He didn't even want to speak because he feared they'd make fun of his thick accent. When deciding where to go to college, Alessandro decided to go to Dartmouth with his brother Jose because he wanted to spend more time with him. Alessandro joined a Latino theater group his freshman year. A week before opening, the producer and the founder of the group came to watch rehearsals. Her name was April. April stopped the play after the first act and asked the whole cast if they thought about the issues it addresses. Everyone was silent, and Alessandro admits in his essay that he hadn't given it much thought. Alessandro's character talks about what it's like to be Black in the Latino community and how, according to April, Latinos are ashamed of their African roots. After this whole interaction, he realizes he's never thought of himself as a Black Latino. He didn't quite fit into the Latino community that was supposed to be a support group for him, but no one else on campus understood that besides his own brother. Alessandro goes on to talk about how he's neither Black nor Latino, but he speaks for others who live between the lines just like himself. One Life, Many Lenses by David Rallos is a story about a half-Mexican, half-white boy who never was Mexican enough for his father's side of the family. David is the oldest of 4 kids, and just before 5th grade, he transferred schools to an upper-middle-class Catholic school called St. Michael's. When David, his siblings, and his parents gathered with his dad's side of the family for holidays, he began to notice some major differences. David and his siblings grew up in a predominantly white, middle-class neighborhood, while his aunts, uncles, and cousins lived in a lower-income Mexican part of town. David and his siblings went to private schools while their cousins went to public schools. They dressed and talked differently from the rest of the family. Both David and his cousins felt that his cousins were more Mexican. In the end, David doesn't like being labeled Latino. He wants people to know that his life experiences have shaped him into who he is today, and that he won't allow himself to be categorized, and he never will. He is more than just Latino. He is a man with a story who happens to be Latino. That is what he wants people to know. Throughout these 3 stories, it is obvious that none of the authors grew up identifying as Latino. With their cultures and homelands, there is no need to self-identify as Latino because their homelands weren't necessarily melting pots like America. To 2 authors, becoming Latino empowered them and it gave them a place in American society. But to the other, being Latino only limited him and his life experiences.